right, everybody, what's up? And welcome to A Bettor Morning presented by Rival Fantasy, the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. It's a good Friday morning. I'm your host, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. It is the first day of the month of September. The waiting is almost over. NFL football will soon be back. I'm sure you got fantasy football drafts this week. In a couple moments, I'll tell you a good way to not be a loser in your fantasy football draft. So give me a couple seconds before I get into that. Coming up on the program today, though, got a big day. College football gets ready to kick off this week. Last weekend, we had week 0. This weekend, we have the official week 1 of college football. All got started last night with a couple games to tell you about that. But obviously, with college football starting tomorrow, it's not about Alabama. It's not about Georgia. It's about one man out there in Boulder, Colorado. His name is Deion Sanders, a.k.a. Coach Prime. And we'll get into his story to this moment coming up in a few seconds. But let me tell you about last night first. Had a couple of college football games I want to get to. Nebraska and Minnesota opened up Big Ten play last night. Minnesota gets the 13-10 win. Nebraska covers the spread at 7.5-point underdogs at 13-10 was the final score. So clearly the under cashed in that one right there. Another good contest last night. The Florida Gators went out to Utah to take on the Utes. Utes come into the game as a 4.5-point favorite. They win the game 24-11. Remember, I knocked on this table yesterday and told you sharp money was hitting the under. I hope you took that advice and cashed that ticket as the under cashes last night, as well as Utah is the favorite. As a matter of fact, I told you a Utah under parlay was the play for last night. If you did that, you are up going into the weekend. Speaking of the weekend, your fantasy football draft is coming up this weekend. And obviously, injuries are a big part of fantasy football and fantasy football drafting. And here we go again with Cooper Kupp. When the guy is talented, this guy is super duper talented. When he's on the field and healthy, he is one of the best players, one of the best assets to have as a fantasy owner. The problem is Cooper Kupp stay hurt a lot. He's going to be on my all-flag football team. Hamstring strain early in training camp. Figured, okay, you know what? Cooper Kupp be all right. He'll be back. He'll be good to go for week 1. I'm drafting him all over the place. I'm buying a dip on Cooper Kupp. Yesterday, Adam Schefter, ESPN, reports that Sean McVay has said that Cooper Kupp has had a setback and is going to be day-to-day. That is not what you want to hear going into a big draft weekend. My advice, if I'm on the clock this weekend, you can't draft Kupp in the first round. These soft tissue injuries for an older player, you never know how it's going to turn out. So you got to be wary about drafting Kupp early in the first round or in the first round period. Now, a player like Cooper Kupp, you're coming back on that 2-3 turn, and Cooper Kupp's still sitting there. That's when I would start to get a little bit itchy right there because, listen, before Kupp went out last year, he was averaging 22 fantasy points a game. That's the same as Justin Jefferson. That kind of production can be done from Kupp, but obviously the injuries are very tough to deal with because he can't average 22 fantasy points a game if he is in your injured reserve spot. Now, like I say, got big fantasy football drafts this weekend. That means it's a good time to start a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. Free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet. The cheat sheet is what you need to print to bring to your draft. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. All right, let's get into it. Coach Prime. It's Coach Prime Day right here on the Better Sports Network. And I want to talk a little bit about Coach Prime and Deion Sanders and how the journey to him changing college football could very well start tomorrow. You see that scene right there. That's his son with him. You see the scene out there in Boulder, Colorado. You probably never seen that many people excited about Colorado football than they are right now with Coach Prime getting ready to take over the program. Well, how did Coach Prime get here? How did a NFL Hall of Famer from South Florida end up in Boulder, Colorado? And this is one of the things I really respect about Deion Sanders. Because back in the summer of 2020 or early 2020, Deion Sanders wanted to be a head coach in college football. His sons were getting older. They're getting to college football age. Shador's a guy who, the quarterback, is a guy who practices and works out with Tom Brady. So he wants to coach his sons in college football. Now, obviously, Coach Prime being a Florida State guy, Florida State was the desired destination. But Florida State wasn't ready to take on a brand new head coach. So they went and got Mike Norvell. Now, what Deion Sanders did is he took a call from the athletic director at historically black college, Jackson State University. Jackson State University is the place that, gave us NFL Hall of Fame legends like Walter Payton. So Deion goes down to Jackson State. You see, this was my problem with Eric Bieniemy. When he had the opportunity to coach, everybody said, Eric Bieniemy got to get a head coach. Eric Bieniemy got to get a head coach. When he had a chance to go to college, he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm supposed to coach in the NFL. Coach Prime wanted to coach big-time college football on the Power 5 level. No job was there. So he went down to tiny Jackson State. And you know what he did? He won. Not only did he win, he recruited well as well. He won the SWAC twice. Now, he did lose in the Celebration Bowl twice, 1 year to the mighty South Carolina State Bulldogs. But he went down there, he won, and he recruited. He recruited so well that in 2022, he got the #1 player in the country in Travis Hunter to commit to his tiny program at Jackson State University. Well, as Coach Prime went through winning the SWAC and being the man, what you saw about his style was that it was different. He wasn't your classic college football head coach, because why would Deion Sanders conform to anything else than being who Deion Sanders truly is? Prime time, it must be the money, the Jerry curls, the chains, the swagger. All of that's gone. Now it's about family, focus, faith, his children, and turning young men into great football players, into great people, period. Got it done at Jackson State. So obviously, towards the end of his time in JSU, the whispers, you start to hear them. Power 5 teams trying to get Coach Prime to come to their organization. And the two that immediately stood out was the University of South Florida and the Colorado Buffaloes. And listen, kind of just knowing Coach Prime, who he is, South Florida guy, lived in Texas most of his life. Why would Deion Sanders ever go to Colorado? The place is going to be the University of South Florida. Well, not so fast. Coach Prime goes out there. He takes the visit. They give him the contract he wants. He falls in love with the schools and the facilities. And Deion Sanders, a.k.a. Coach Prime, takes over after 2 years at Jackson State and becomes the head coach of a Power 5 school in the University of Colorado Buffaloes. Coach Prime got it done. He didn't say, nobody won't hire me. Nobody won't give me a job. He went down to tiny Jackson State and built the winner. Now he's trying to do that at the University of Colorado with the Buffaloes. But there's a problem. Not only did Prime inherit the Colorado job, he inherited the worst Power 5 college football team there was. He inherited the worst Power 5 college football roster maybe ever. That was going to slow down Coach Prime's losing. But in a legendary meeting with his team on the first time talking to them, here's what Coach Prime had to tell the Buffaloes back earlier this year.
We got a few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me. And it's Louis. Okay.
You heard that. He said he's bringing his luggage with him, and it's Louis. Now, that shocked the college football landscape. How could somebody just come in there and tell those kids that's on scholarship that did their best for that uniform, that's university, that he was bringing his luggage, and it was Louis? But you know what? The people in Boulder like it. All of a sudden, everybody in the college football world was excited about what was going to happen in Boulder, Colorado this year, this upcoming season. Coach Prime is bringing his swagger, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and everybody from Jackson State over to the West Coast to beautiful Boulder, Colorado. But are they going to win football games? You see, because you can talk the talk and walk the walk, but can you win football games? Can you really turn over this roster? You said, hey, listen, I'm bringing my luggage and it's Louis. Well, you know Coach Prime talks a big game, and obviously the worldwide leader in the media companies was going to eat this up. So what did they do? They went out and broadcast Boulder's Colorado spring practice. This was the only spring practice that was nationally televised live this year, was the Colorado Buffaloes. That's not because of the history and the lore of the Colorado Buffaloes. That's because of the swag of Coach Prime. This is a guy that can take over big-time college football, but you got to win first. And a lot of people said it was going to be hard to win when everybody, he said, I'm bringing my luggage in his Louis, they all left. So now you got to make a college football team on the fly, and you plan on winning and competing. Well, you know what? Shout out to Coach Prime because he got that done. Turned that entire roster over, dominated in the transfer portal. Now, the skilled players, Jimmy Horn, Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter, the entire secondary, all legit. The problem with Colorado is going to be in the trenches. Can they compete in the Pac-12 in the trenches? Speaking of competing in the Pac-12, the Pac-12 is loaded this year. We just saw Utah last night. They won without their star quarterback in Cam Rising. Michael Penix in Washington, a top 10 team out there. Obviously, another top 10 program, the USC Trojans and Caleb Williams. So the work is cut out for the University of Colorado and Deion Sanders football team. But now it all gets to start tomorrow. The very first Saturday of the college football season. The very first big-time Saturday. Not week 0. I'm talking about the prime time Saturday. At a noon Eastern kickoff, Deion Sanders will take his Colorado Buffaloes into Fort Worth, Texas, to take on Texas Christian University. Now, this is the most interesting thing. Obviously, everybody's going to be watching this. College football was smart. Put the guy on TV the first 2 weeks of the season, Coach Prime, at noon Eastern. It's kicking off the day with the guy that everybody wants to see, the team everybody wants to root for. But now we got to make smart decisions because we still haven't seen this roster. They're playing the team that was in the national championship last year. How fitting is that? On the road. Now, what's so interesting about this is the Colorado Buffaloes in this game. This is going to blow your mind. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Colorado is a 21-point underdog. A 21-point underdog. 70% of the bets are on Colorado. 80% of the money line is on Colorado, not the tickets, the money. When you have 80% of the money on a plus 800 underdog, that's not a coincidence. That's sharp money actually hitting Colorado money line. People think that they can go down there and win this game. Now, listen, I'll tell you one thing about it. Max Duggan is gone. Offensive coordinator Garrett Riley, he's over in Clemson now. So maybe they do have a shot. I know one thing is going to be fun to root for them. The win total for Colorado is only 3.5. Everybody's betting over. Who don't want to root for Coach Prime? And obviously you see that plus 800 is something that some people think can happen this week. Now, that could be a lot of hype, but here's the thing. It's not the tickets. It's the handle. It's the money. It's not the $25 guy. It's not the $10 guy. It ain't the $50 guy. It's the guy that's betting big money, is laying it with the Buffaloes. Find that very interesting. Noon Eastern time tomorrow. It is prime time day. Now, there's one thing about Coach Prime that has been a little bit of an issue. Years ago in Carolina, Deion Sanders, when he was playing for the Dallas Cowboys, got turf toe. Real bad turf toe. Turf toe is one of those injuries that it just kind of heal on its own. Well, Prime's never really healed. Had a lot of surgeries to deal with it. I believe he ended up getting a staph infection. Coach Prime health deteriorated. He had to have a part of his leg cut off. And I'm quite sure he's back a couple digits on his toes. The guy who made a living with his feet is having problems with his feet. But after a recent surgery, Coach Prime was determined to run on the field in Fort Worth with his team. So his partners at Nike, they only did the right thing. If Coach Prime is going to run out there, we're going to have his back. Yesterday on his social media, Coach Prime revealed the shoe that he'll be wearing to run out with his team.
Let's go, Smith.
However they want to do that, we'll be ready for them.
I've kept a lid on all this. I don't think no one's got the artwork, so no one has seen it. Thinking through the TCU game, if you want to let everybody see it for the first time when they roll out of the tunnel on Saturday. And then when they roll out, then all the stuff that these guys can capture between now and then, you can blow out.
Yeah.
If you want to do that?
We'll save it to them.
Okay. Or if you want to start to tease it, Thursday, like anything is fair game. I have it all together now so that whatever you want to shoot, we can get set up, and then.
What I'll do, I'll just let Bucky put a teaser out with those. Let me see this one right here, Bucky. Just shoot that one, then come up to me.
The kind of excitement that's taking place with this team, with this program. And also you see why Deion Sanders had the capability to take over college football. Because it's the faith, it's the inspiration, it's the swagger. He's basically turned his program into a social media reality television program. The impressions on Colorado's social media went up by 250,000% after they brought him in. People are checking for him. Young men are inspired by him. They want to play for him. It doesn't matter if you take a kid from Florida and send him out to the Rocky Mountains. They're going to go because of Coach Prime. And that era is getting ready to get started this upcoming weekend. So what I will say is this: enjoy it, have fun with it, and put a couple dollars on the Buffalo to win the game at plus 800. That's how I'm rolling with it. A couple other games I like this weekend. It starts off with Colorado and that lottery ticket long shot. In the 4 p.m. Eastern time window, not the biggest game, but University of Texas San Antonio, a team people like coming into this year, take on the University of Houston. This is a rematch from the opener last year. Last year, this game was won by Houston 35-30 in overtime. Let me tell you something. USTA, University of Texas San Antonio is going to win this game tomorrow. I guarantee you, because Dana Holgorsen is the head coach of Houston. He's terrible. He doesn't know what he's doing. He tried to give that game away last year. UTSA will get it back this year. Also, North Texas is a home dog versus Cal. They're getting 6.5 points at home versus Cal. Money line. Plus 200. 2 money line bangers, underdogs. Plus 800 with Colorado. Plus 200 with North Texas. Plus 200 with North Texas. That number's going to start to drop tomorrow morning. You want to get in there now. There you go right there. I just gave him a couple, Matt, better boss. I gave him UTSA. I gave him North Texas. Obviously, the big one tomorrow night, University of South Carolina and North Carolina, they meet up in Charlotte. That's where college game day will be at. I already told you I'm taking the Gamecocks on the money line in that one right there. So listen, we got 3 money line underdogs. Colorado, South Carolina, North Texas. North Texas is the mean green. North Texas, and then we got one favorite in the University of Texas San Antonio. Gave you a winner last night. Got 3 more winners for tomorrow. And then there might be something on the schedule that I like tonight. But before we get to that, I do want to turn it over and give a shout out to our people over there at Rival Fantasy, the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. I got Jon Impemba has some plays for the night that you need. So go ahead and roll that right now.
On FA Nation, Jon Impemba here, bringing you your Rivals Fantasy Challenges plays of the day here. Rivals Fantasy Challenges, we're looking to find the player that will score the most fantasy points between the 2 matchups in this head-to-head contest here. We're starting looking at Chris Flexen of the Colorado Rockies going up against the Toronto Blue Jays, and Jordan Wicks pitching for the Chicago Cubs here going up against the Cincinnati Reds. Wicks looked good in his major league debut, while Flexen has a terrible matchup here in Coors Field against the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to go with Jordan Wicks in this matchup against the Cincinnati Reds. There's an honest chance that Chris Flexen ends up with negative fantasy points in this matchup, given how poorly he's pitched, the Coors Field environment, and this Toronto Blue Jays offense. So we'll go with Jordan Wicks here for our first Rivals Fantasy Challenges play for Friday's slate. Moving on to the other options that we have here. They once again give us Jordan Wicks here going up against Jake Irvin. You go ahead and skip that one and kind of go ahead and find the right matchup that you want to look to take advantage of here when it comes to the board. Here we have Jordan Wicks again against the Reds, as we mentioned, but now we have Luis Robert going up against the Detroit Tigers. Eduardo Rodriguez is pitching for Detroit. Luis Robert is absolutely hammered left-handed pitching this season here. I can honestly see Robert hitting a home run in this spot here. So when it comes to Wicks versus Robert, let's go with Robert for this matchup. Again, place the wager that we have on this spot here for that matchup. Plenty more options you can go ahead and pick through for the Rivals Challenges fantasy game here. But for today, that's where we're at. Good luck, everybody. Let's go make some money.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Good stuff. Don't forget Rival Fantasy, all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Plenty of cool contests you can get involved with over there on the fantasy sports side of things. Another quick college note right quick. The ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's important that I say the Atlantic Coast Conference because if I'm not mistaken, the Atlantic Coast is over here. The Atlantic Coast Conference is adding Stanford, Cal, and SMU. So Atlantic Coast over here, SMU probably about right here, Cal and Stanford over here. And you mean to tell me this is collegiate sports? So you expect Stanford to play Pittsburgh during the school year? This ain't collegiate sports. This is professional athletics. Now, tonight, got a special treat for you, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Me and my guy, Justin Fensterman, are broadcasting real-time fantasy sports, high-stakes 5K draft right here at 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight on the Better Sports Network. What better way to get ready for your fantasy drafts this weekend than to tune in tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time as we go through a draft with a $5,000 entry fee. These guys know what they're doing. You need to be here, get some advice for them so you can know what you're doing this upcoming weekend. I want to thank everybody for rocking with the Fantasy Exec this weekend. Had a good weekend, week one of the Fantasy Executive flying solo on A Bettor Morning. Shout out, as always, to the great Heather Klein. I want to wish everybody a happy weekend. Good luck in your fantasy drafts. Go get that cheat sheet from fantasyalarm.com. Print it out. It's free. Take it to your draft. And don't forget, sign up for Rival Fantasy. Have some fun with that. And obviously tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, the big draft night with real-time fantasy sports as they get ready for their 5K league. For Heather, it's Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive, wishing you a better weekend.